Welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have a jam-packed show today, starting out with the Adult Survivors Act. Very important. We have attorney Anthony DiPietro, who's going to be on here to talk to you a little bit about it. Next up, we're going to be talking about the sickle cell anemia with Merlene Smith Sotolo. Very important that everybody knows what sickle cell anemia is. It affects 10,000 New Yorkers as we speak. It's very, very important. And lastly, we have a gentleman who's going to be on. His name is Devon Simmons. He's going to be talking about a paralegal program that the incarcerated, once they're released, can become a part of and certainly work with Columbia law students. It's fascinating. Anyway, stay with us. Today's verdict has a big show coming up right now. Okay, welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have returning with us today, Anthony DiPietro. We're going to talk a little bit about the Adult Survivors Act, refresh our recollection of what you talked about the last time you were here. How are you doing, Anthony?
Sure. Good morning. How are you, David? Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, of course. All right, so let's talk about the Adult Survivors Act exactly, and really what is it and how are you involved?
Sure. So the Adult Survivors Act opens up a one-year look-back window for anyone who was sexually exploited or abused in the state of New York. It could have happened back in 1950. Normally the statute of limitations is only 1 year on these type of cases. But what the legislature has done has opened up what's called a look-back window, which means that anyone who's been affected can come forward, file a case, and the case can't be dismissed based on the statute of limitations. Now, the important part about this is the window closes on November 23rd, right? So we're only a couple weeks out.
So what can we do about that in terms of extending the time?
Yeah, so there has been some talk, with the legislature in New York about possibly extending it. It doesn't look like it's going to get extended immediately. There's a possibility they may open up another look back window. These are discussions that we're having that are ongoing right now because so many people in the state have been affected by this kind of stuff.
And from what I understand, because you have a lot of these cases involving Columbia University and in particular physician, Dr. Robert Haddon, and what he did to several people. It looks like you're looking for some more information from Columbia so you can find out maybe who might also have been a victim. Am I correct?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm estimating that upwards of 8,500, maybe 10,000 patients were exposed to Robert Haddon while he was there between 1987 and 2012. And what's interesting is the New York State Department of Health in 2016 ordered that all of Haddon's patients receive a notification that he lost his license. But here's the thing. Columbia has all the patient records, the patient list. Haddon doesn't have these things. And so we've been asking Columbia to say, hey, send the letter to your patients. Patients should be informed about their health care. And Columbia's been refusing to send out a notification to their patients.
It obviously doesn't behoove them to do this because they will be named as a defendant, more than likely, in all those cases. How do you get them to, I don't know, do the right thing? How do you get them to do that, to send over the necessary information to you or to whoever it is that wants to make sure the patients know that they may have a lawsuit against, Mr. Haddon and against Columbia?
Yeah, so I guess that's the question, right? What kind of institution does Columbia University want to be? Do they want to be an institution that covers up decades of sexual abuse? Or do they want to be an institution that's transparent, that owns what they did, acknowledges their shortcomings, and informs their patients? And so far, they've been an institution that wants to cover this up. And so that's why my office has filed what's called an Article 78 motion to try to compel the Department of Health to enforce their order and force Columbia to send out this notification to all their patients that were exposed.
Now, do they have to do this? Well, what happens with that look back period? I mean, because if it is ending, it doesn't really matter if everybody finds this out and it happened by the doctor 20, 30, almost 35 years ago. What do you do about that? I mean, you need both, don't you? Right? You need both. You need the extension of the look back period or a new look back period, and you need all the records and everything so you can notify these particular patients.
In an ideal world, yes, that's absolutely correct. And look, David, as you know, I think I've been at this for 10 years. I'm not going anywhere. All right. And in law, there's very few things are black and white. Right. And so one of the things that I've done for the past 10 years is, when I've been filing these cases before the look back window existed, is I've been filing these cases as a fraud. And as you know, the fraud statute of limitations doesn't start to run until people discover the fraud. So the fact that Columbia hasn't notified these patients, and we've been asking them to, that's just a furtherance of the fraud that they've been committing for all these years already.
Have you been successful in terms of that particular tactic, suggesting that it's fraud, to toll the statute of limitations?
Sure. So far, we've resolved 231 cases against Columbia University. We've now filed 301 new cases a few weeks ago, and I'm in the process of preparing another 200 cases as we speak.
I'm interested in this particular acronym, DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender.
Yes.
Who came up with that? And the institutional betrayal. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my understanding is that was created by Dr. Jennifer Freyd. She's written extensively on this, and it is a typical perpetrator kind of defense, right? And so what the perpetrator does is, in the first instance, deny any wrongdoing and reverse the role between the offender and the victim. So all of a sudden the perpetrator pretends like the perpetrator's the victim. How dare you question what's going on? And it's really important work, and I appreciate Dr. Freyd's research and work that she's done in this area.
And I know she talks about the institutional commitment, making sure that, and you talked a little bit about this earlier, that Columbia University does the right thing here and lets as many people know that they may be a victim, because it could take years of therapy before you even think that this could be buried in the back of your mind, and it could be affecting your life, and you may not even be realizing it until all of a sudden you're triggered by some type of notice from the university or from you, letting them know, look, you may be a victim here, right? So it's important. Where are we heading with this? I mean, crystal ball, next 6 months to a year. What are your thoughts? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so look, David, every case that I've handled, I've always tried to view it as bigger than the case itself. And I think that's a lot of the reason why hundreds of people in the state have come to me and my firm to work on their cases, because, our goal isn't just to get some money for people and move on to the next one. All right, what we're trying to do is change this culture, to fix the problem. We're constantly looking for ways to make the community safer for others, for kids, grandkids, and generations to come, by forcing these institutions to be more transparent and to implement the policies and procedures that are necessary to protect patients going forward. That's what we're about, and that's what we're trying to do.
All right, well, thanks for coming back. It's some really important stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think these things are going to end. I think there's a lot of sexual abuse pervasive throughout New York, and certainly the country. And it's good to have you there to help these victims. It really is.
Thank you for the kind words, David. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, stay with us. Today's Verdict has so much more coming up right after this. Welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have with us today Merlene Smith Sotelo. How you doing, Merlene?
Sotelo.
Sotelo.
Yes, sir.
I love it. So this is a very serious subject. Let's talk a little bit about sickle cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is sickle cell anemia?
Sickle cell anemia is a blood disorder that affects your blood cells.
And is it genetic? Is it hereditary?
It is hereditary. Both parents has to have the sickle cell trait in order for a child to have the sickle cell disease. Now, there's a 1 in 4 chance that every pregnancy is a possibility that you can have a child with sickle cell disease.
From what I understand, there are about 10,000 New Yorkers affected by the disease. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
So when do you even find out you have it? When you're a baby, when you're young?
No, unfortunately, I found out after I had my daughter. She had the sickle cell disease, and I'm originally from Trinidad. So for 9 months, no one could tell me what was wrong with this child because she had both hands and feet were swollen. And no one could tell me what the problem was. She was just crying in pain all the time. I didn't know what to do. And eventually my in-laws were from Tobago. And after going through all this for so long, they said, why not just send her to Tobago? Because our in-laws is in the medical field and they might be able to do something. So I sent her there. And within a matter of days, they were able to diagnose her with sickle cell disease. A doctor had just came back from England, English-trained doctor, so he was able to diagnose her immediately because he said he saw the signs and he recognized it, and so they did the test and it was positive.
And what can you do for it?
Well, at that time, nothing much you could have done for it except give them pain medication. So when I came here in '89, I decided to upgrade my medical training. And so I work at different hospitals, got involved in the sickle cell organization. And so I was able to educate myself on sickle cell and the dangers of inheriting sickle cell and how I can be a better parent taking care of my children. By then I had 4 children and 2 of them had the sickle cell disease.
And what did you learn in terms of what could you do to help them?
What can I do to help? The most important thing you have to make sure, because since we have 4 seasons here, which we didn't have in Trinidad, you have to learn how to dress warm, how to eat properly, and how to make sure that you know what the triggers are for sickle cell, because just saying you have sickle cell disease doesn't help you in any way unless you know exactly what triggers a crisis. And once you're educated with that, then you'd be able to figure out what the triggers are and how you can best assist in educating yourself. With
who is this person joining? Who is this?
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. We can't see you. Come on in here.
Okay, you see me now?
All right, we see you. And who are you?
Okay, my name is Molino Sotelo. I'm the vice president of the Sickle Cell Awareness Foundation.
Okay, so let's talk a little about the foundation. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about it since you just joined us. Tell us about the foundation.
Well, the foundation was really founded by our son who had sickle cell, by my son, our son, and Merlene, the president. And when he observed the treatment that the sister was getting at the ER, at the emergency room, many times they were so slow in attending to patients with sickle cell. He encouraged the mother that something should be done to enlighten medical providers with what and how they should treat sickle cell disease. And because patients come in with crisis, and because of having crisis means that your body is losing oxygen, and it can be fatal. So as a result of that, he encouraged the mother that they should open an organization to bring more awareness to the community and to the medical providers about how they should
Now, sickle cell anemia commonly affects the African American community. Am I correct?
Yes, it do affect the African American community, but it get proportionate because of interracial marriages. Because for instance, I can have the trait, and somebody from another ethnic group may not have the trait, but by spreading the trait with that marriage, it means that it can live and goes along, because sickle cell do not come like, it's asthma or it's
Hypertension, cancer.
or fever that you may get, is something that is hereditary to the patient.
Let me ask you a question. I understand there's some type of blood transfusions that you could get, but it's tough to you're using blood all the time. Do they do that to try and help those with sickle cell?
Yes, they do administer blood transfusion, but that only lasts 6 weeks instead of the regular 3 months. So, in spite of the blood transfusion, you're still at risk for cold, you're at risk for anything. You're at risk for whether it's stroke, whether it's blindness, whether it's a kidney failure or heart attack, whatever it is. Unless they try stem cell, they try bone marrow, and it work with some people and some it doesn't. So
how is your organization getting the word out to everybody to let them know that there are treatments?
Well, what we do on a regular basis, we bring awareness, we bring advocacy through health fairs, we do presentation at churches, at community health centers and schools, to invite other people to understand how they should be aware of avoiding getting sickle cell disease. We try to let young people understand that the best way to go, in spite of the other treatments, is to get tested. Yes. We advocate for testing a lot, because by you knowing your blood type, your status, you would be able that your other partner, you would be able to ensure that they would be able to recognize the blood type to avoid having a baby with sickle cell disease. So this is one of the things that we really do most here. Apart from advocacy, we advocate for the awareness and also for blood testing.
Where do we find you?
Well, you would find us. Our phone number here is 718-657-3173. We do have an alternate number, which is 917-373-8434. And our address is 108-03 164th Place, Jamaica, New York, 11433. And we do have a website that you could contact us at www.scafci.org.
And we're talking about the Sickle Cell Awareness Foundation, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I want to thank you both for being here. It's very important that the community hears about this, and hopefully you can come back on one day and give us a little bit of an update of how the foundation's doing.
Well, thank you very much.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you. We do appreciate that. And as Ms. Ramos said, we just got a part in the sickle cell bill signed last month. And in 2021, we got the other part of the bill signed, where the Department of Health write the language for all hospitals on sickle cell disease. So we just have one part leave to have passed, which is the Centers of Excellence. So we're working on that feverishly to have that also passed, which is very important for our patients.
Come back on and discuss with us in the next time. All right, well, stay with us. Today's verdict has so much more right after this.
Is that time yet?
It's time.
Come start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Pasta dinner.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have joining us with us today, Devon Simmons. Devon, how you doing today?
I'm good. And you?
You have a very interesting story. Before we get to it, you're with the Paralegal Pathways Initiative, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to call that PPI for short.
And that's exactly what it's titled.
All right, tell us a little bit about your story, if you could.
Yes, so I'm the co-founder and associate director, of the Paralegal Pathways Initiative here at Columbia Law School. So I conceptualized the program in collaboration with the law students, which is why I emphasize that I'm the co-founder, because if it wasn't for them, the project would have never gotten off the ground. The program is really designed to hone the skills that people develop inside of jails and prisons, which is primarily legal research. When I came home from prison, I recognized that a lot of people whom I spent time with in the law library were either idle or had some type of menial employment, which really didn't illustrate the skills in which they developed. I mean, I sat with people for years in the law library, and to see all that talent go to waste really was bothersome. So I really came up with the concept of the program after having a conversation with a law student and realized how I was actually sitting in a law school, and it was a great opportunity for people to hone the skills that they develop. So when I was incarcerated, I actually was part of John Jay's Prison to College Pipeline program. And in that program, once a month, students from John Jay would actually come up to Otisville Correctional Facility, and we would engage in a learning exchange. And it actually was an opportunity to start building community before I actually came home, which was really delightful, because when I actually did come home, I had like 11 students waiting for me on campus. Anyhow, I took that model and always kept it in the back of my head, like, you know, this is a great opportunity for students to learn from people with lived experience. So when I came home and I was actually at John Jay taking classes for my undergrad, I had met Lucy Lang, Inspector General now, Lucy Lang. She used to run the Institute for Progressive Prosecution, I think is titled. And she used to invite me into these roundtables with district attorneys from around the country. And these district attorneys will always say that ADAs don't know about the criminal legal system before entering the district attorney's office because they weren't taught in law school. So basically, I took this opportunity to put law students in the same room with people whom are formerly incarcerated so that they can actually get some insight of their experience going through the carceral state.
And does it work when you're sitting with those who are incarcerated, have been incarcerated? Are you really getting that experience? The ADAs, can they use that now?
Well, no, well, we don't know what our law students will actually go out and do in the world, but if they do decide to do that specifically, they will have insight about the ways in which the criminal legal system actually plays out. The name of the course is actually titled Meaningful Reentry, and it's experiential learning at its finest. So we're actually about to embark on 5 years. Come May, we'll have 50 alum who are spread out all across the country as a means to actually highlight our initiative, and really proud of what we built.
Yeah, I know. I see that it kicked off in 2018. It's like a quid pro quo. The students are learning from the inmates or the former inmates, and vice versa. The former inmates learning from the students. I wonder if any of the former inmates go on to become law students. Do they ever do that?
So ultimately, that is the goal. We actually currently have one formerly incarcerated person who is actually at law school right now. Most of our participants who've gone through the program are currently employed in the legal field, because ultimately the goal is to get people employment in the legal field. So it's not designed for people to be career paralegals. However, traditionally the trajectory into entering the legal field has primarily been starting as a paralegal. So that's why it's titled paralegal. It's just an umbrella term in which we use, but it's really the pathway into the legal field.
By the way, who is Kevin Campfield? I understand he has an interesting story as a paralegal graduate.
Yeah, so he's one of the graduates from our program. He's currently enrolled at the School of General Studies in pursuit of him actually going to law school. So we actually are able to support any of our participants who complete the program. If they desire to take the LSAT to go to law school, that is one of the goals. But unfortunately, this is where the education piece is so important here in the US. You cannot basically apply to law school until you complete your undergrad. So if people have been incarcerated for 5-10 years and they don't have their bachelor's degree, then it's a long trek for them to actually apply for law school. But we're here to support them through the journey, and eventually we will send more people to law school.
What tips would you give to somebody who's watching today and they just unfortunately spent a significant amount of time in prison and they come out and they want to be a part of this? What would you tell them?
I would tell them, don't lose your passion for practicing law. If you spent hours of years literally in the law library utilizing those books and doing legal research, those are skills in which could be used in the legal sector, and you have expertise in which most people who are in the legal field don't have. So I'm not selling, our participants just need a job because they came out of prison. No, our participants have talent and are qualified and will make your organization better.
I love it. We're going to leave it there, Devon. Hopefully you can come back maybe in the next 6 months. Let us know how the program's going and give us some insight.
I definitely will. We'll be embarking on PPI at 5, so be on the lookout for that, where we're going to showcase our program, because the goal ultimately is for law schools all over the country, all over the world, to interact with the communities that they're designed to serve.
Perfect. I love it. All right. Stay with us. Today's verdict has so much more right after
Thanks
this.
for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Well, that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you have a show or a topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to email me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org. Until the next time, know your issues, reach a verdict. See you in 2 weeks.